Hey guys, today on Courtney Sweets, I'm showing you how to make my ground taco meat. It's super delicious and I use my own homemade seasonings, so no packets here. I have a cast iron skillet that I'm heated to a medium heat, and then we're gonna add our ground beef. I'm using an 80-20, you could use less fat if you like. And then I'm gonna add some flour. This is gonna help kind of make it a little bit thicker, but this is totally optional. You could also leave the flour out if you want so that it could be gluten-free. Next, I'm going to take my potato masher and I like to just really mash the meat really quickly on that hot surface so it kind of sears a little bit. We're not mushing it so it gets mush, but then eventually once I get that sear, I'm going to start mashing it. And you can see how it's kind of gotten thicker. That's from the flour, it kind of coats it. And then once we have our meat browned, I'm going to drain that fat. The cast iron is very hot and heavy, so I actually just put a piece of paper towel bunched up and then I'll mash that. You could also use a spoon, or if you have a lighter pan, you can actually drain it into a colander. And you want to keep mashing that meat until it's fully cooked. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of chili powder. And you can measure this, but I usually just do it by eye. I'm going to add in a half tablespoon of oregano. Again, by eye, you can use a teaspoon measure, a tablespoon measure. Then we're going to add in half a teaspoon of garlic. I use granulated garlic, but you could also use powdered. You might need to use a little less. Then we always do a little bit more onion than we do garlic, and I use 2 teaspoons of onion powder. This is actually granulated onion, so 2 of those. A little bit more. You could use 1 to 2 teaspoons of paprika. I like to use about 2, almost like a chunk. I like to use a bit. It actually gives it a redder color, and it gives that rich color, so I like to use a little bit more. Then we're going to also use a little bit of cumin. I go with half a tablespoon of cumin. That's a very good Mexican flavor. Then we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of pepper. And oh my goodness, I keep forgetting to buy pepper. It's at the bottom of the barrel. There. We're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then we're going to go in with our water, but first I'm going to mix this. And I like to use a slotted spoon to mix it. You could use a regular spoon, but we're just going to go ahead and mix. Let those seasonings kind of toast a bit before we add the water and really get flavorful and develop more flavor than they would if I just boiled them into the meat. I like to cook them into the meat a little bit. Totally optional, you could just dump the water in, but yeah, it does develop flavors a bit more when you toast seasonings dry. I mean, it's not completely dry, but the meat's drier than it is if I would add the water. Alright, and then I did drain the meat, so I'm going to go with the larger amount of water that I have written in the printable, because we do need to add that moisture back. 1, and then we're going to go back in with a ½ cup. So now if you wanted to add less water, you could do that. I do a lot of water because we're going to cook this water into the meat, and the seasonings are going to really get into that water, and it's going to be really flavorful. But if you like it more on the dry side, you can play with the water amounts. We have 3/4 to 1½ cup on our recipe, and I always go for the 1½ cup. Now if I was leaving the oil in here and not doing just water and doing oil and water, I always go with a little bit less, but it's really going to depend on the oil and the moisture that's in the meat. So we definitely needed the 1½. As you can see, I'm going to let this cook for a little bit more, and then those flavors will really meld together, get into the juices of the meat, get into the juices of the water we just added, and everything's going to be super flavorful. So we're going to let that cook. So now that I added the water, you can see it's boiling. I'm going to actually reduce the heat now, and we're going to let it come to a simmer and just let it cook for 10 minutes so the flavors really develop in all of the meat and all the water that we just added in there. So just 10 minutes and then you have delicious taco meat. Cast iron holds heat really well, so you'll still see it's boiling a bit, but we did reduce that heat. And you want to come in and just mix it every so often during that 10 minutes because you don't want it to stick to the bottom, especially if you're using the cast iron. It can start to stick a bit. So just make sure you're scraping here and there. And my cast iron is very well seasoned, so I'm not concerned about scraping. I could scrape this all day long and then fry an egg on it tomorrow morning. So it's really, really durable. Don't be scared of cast iron. It's actually my favorite. So that you can see how... Hi, Bear. Okay, Bear. Okay. To give it a taste test, just to make sure everything is perfect. And it's gonna be really hot. So am I blowing it? Wait. So good. Ready to go. The reason I have dairy-free cheese is we have a dairy allergy in our home, so we have no dairy in our home, as well as a lot of nuts. We don't have any nuts, although we're kind of nuts sometimes. So I'm gonna give this a taste. It's amazing. I tasted it in the pan that you'll see in the video. So I like to get a little bit of everything on my chip, and then I go and dip in my mouth. It's so good. I'm gonna go and eat and enjoy all of this because I just love eating it while it's warm, not cold. And I hope you guys give it a try. It's so, so good. Don't use the packets, seriously. You can control the ingredients, the flavors, even the color, like we said with the paprika. We hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you soon. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Tell us what you want to see more of in the comments, and we'll see you guys soon. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon. Bye. It's also good for like wraps, salads, burritos. I'll even mix it up with like a skillet in the morning if we have leftovers with eggs. So good. And it freezes well too.